Dexter. I'll be the moderator of tonight's program. Thanks so much for being here with us. On behalf of the Adelphi University Department of Athletics, as well as the men's basketball program, we'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. We are honored to be joined virtually by a very special guest, a longtime successful coach making a stop here at Adelphi from 1995 to 1999, where he led the Panthers to an NCAA Division II Sweet 16. He was had an 86-36 record over those 4 years. And then after multiple stops at the Division I level, paving his path to the NBA, where he is currently the head coach of the Orlando Magic. Let's please give a warm welcome to Coach Steve Clifford. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Oh, it's great to be here.
First things first, everybody is living in this crazy world right now. How has the pandemic, affected you in the NBA right now? How have you been able to navigate this, going from the bubble over the summer to now trying to go forward with a regular looking season here that's a couple months in?
Well, I think the bubble was one of the more interesting challenges that we've had as a league. I think as many people know, I think with the NBA, we have great leadership. We have a great commissioner in Adam Silver. And I think we're very much ahead of the curve. The bubble was the safest place, I believe, in the country in that time. And now it's been, to be honest, as challenging as the bubble was, this is more. The travel, guys get tested every day. Just to give everybody an example, every day that you're at home, our guys will practice tomorrow at 10:30. So they'll all be in to be tested by 9 o'clock. And it takes about 30 to 40 minutes for their test to come through with a rapid test. And then we'll be done practice by, say, 12:30. They have to come back at night from 5 to 7 to be tested again. And it's great for the league. We have 0 positive tests, I think, in the last 7 days. But it's obviously, it's an added dimension, I would say, to the challenges of playing 3 or 4 times a week.
Well, your career has been a journey to get to this point. Is this the time, or do you ever have time to kind of look back on all the stops, including, of course, here at Adelphi, that helped you get to this point in becoming an NBA head coach?
I would say so. I think everybody's different, I think the guys that I coach, I would hope would say this is, I'm not an overly ambitious person. I don't view my coaching today any different than it was at Adelphi. I never had plans on, being an NBA coach. That wasn't my goal. It just worked out that way. And I love to coach. I coached in high school. I coached in college. This will be my 21st year in the NBA. I've loved all of it. I'm not sure there's many people who have enjoyed their professional lives more than I have. But I do love the NBA. I love the game. I love the rules. I love coaching older players. And I feel very fortunate to have the years I've had in this league.
Was it always a goal of yours from a young age to become a coach?
Yeah, my dad was a terrific high school coach in the state of Vermont. And, I'll never forget when after my first year playing Division III in college, home for the summer, and I told him, I know for sure I want to be a coach. And, he told me a number of things, but he said the number one thing he told me was, if you're looking for everyday affirmation or people tell you you're doing a good job, don't be a coach, because it's not the way that works. And I've never forgotten that. I've learned a lot from him. Again, I'm fortunate to have the mom and dad that I've had, and he's taught me a lot about coaching, and it served me well.
So before you got to Adelphi, you had a couple of other stops, and we have to give a shout out to our NE10 neighbors up at St. Anselm. So you were an assistant coach there, but before, or actually at the same time, but before it was the basketball route, you were the head women's soccer coach at St. Anselm. What was that experience like, starting out your coaching career?
So two quick things about St. Anselm. I worked for 2 phenomenal coaches. One, Bob Brown, who brought me there as a volunteer, who's Brett Brown, who's the head coach of the 76ers for the last few years, his dad, who I had met at a coaching clinic, and I went there as a volunteer. where when I lived with him in a St. A's owned house, and I was the women's soccer assistant coach, and I did a bunch of stuff. But I worked for UPS, I worked for uh, the postal service, early in the morning, so I could, learn more about recruiting. And then I worked for Keith Dixon for 3 years when Coach Brown left, and Coach Dixon kept me on. Both very much my mentors, and I really learned how to recruit. I learned the college game, and I loved it there. One of my assistants now, Pat Delaney, was a terrific player at St. Anselm. Actually, when we played them in the round of 32, my last year at Adelphi.
Before you got here to Adelphi, you also had a couple of Division I stops as an assistant coach, Fairfield, Boston University, Siena. What did you learn early on in your career as an assistant? You talked about a little bit there, but how did that help build the foundation to what you do as a head coach?
Well, I think the biggest thing that helped me get the Adelphi job was my recruiting ties in New York. And, Chris Bernard, who was a great player, played for, an organization, Rebels, who I had a relationship with, who we, we had a good bond. Yakov Williams played for Rebels organization. So when when the Adelphi job opened, I was at Siena, and I met with Bob Hartwell and the committee. There were two things. There was my recruiting ties in New York, where I had recruited a few New York players to BU and to Siena. And then there was also the relationship with Rebel, which was critical for me. And then Bob Hartwell had a relationship with a guy named Dick Burt, who was the president of the Boston University basketball group up there. So I had some ties, and it helped me, and Adelphi was a great fit for me.
So you got here to Adelphi in 1995. What do you remember about the pressures early on being a first-time college head coach?
The biggest thing is we had a good team. Danny Gimple, Anthony Gilliam, Ray Williams, Perry Herbert was a superstar. And the first time I saw him play, he was feel for the game. He could score. He had character. And I knew we had a good team. And then I was very fortunate in that first summer. Brett Brown, the former assistant coach, the former head coach with the Sixers, called me. We'd had a relationship for a long time, and said, "Hey, I've got this guy at Baylor, Andrew Bridges, who's looking to transfer." So we got Andrew to come to Adelphi, and I think his addition made us a very good team.
In that first season, you went 23-7. You won the conference tournament. You went to the NCAA tournament. Did that bring a certain level of confidence? I know you said you knew you had a good team, but what was to come and what you could accomplish at Adelphi?
Yeah, I think it set a tone. Because we're good on both offense and defense, and I knew it was going to be a somewhat difficult job because we didn't have the full complement of scholarships. But I also knew that I had recruited Division I for a few years. I knew a lot of people, and it was a great product. It's a great place, great campus. The guys loved it, and there were a number of different academic avenues that they could go. So I was very confident that we could be good year in and year out.
You spent 4 years here at Adelphi, as we talked about. All 4 were 20-win seasons. All 4 you went to the NCAA tournament, but it took you until that 4th year to win a game, and you were able to advance to the Sweet 16 your final year at Adelphi. Was finally kind of getting over the hump? Was that a really gratifying moment for you and the team?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, listen, I'll never forget playing pace. That 4th year in the first round, and we had the game in hand. We missed some free throws. They had to steal late to score, and then we had no timeouts. Ryan McCormick made a good play to drive the ball, got a shot, missed it, and Chris Bernard tipped it in. And that is the single biggest play in my 4 years at Adelphi, and that's the way coaching works. there's a fine line always between, success and failure. I'll never forget that play.
You mentioned throughout, a couple of different players, that have still clearly had an impact on you all these years later. What, do you remember about some of the guys that, that played? I know a lot of them are on the call right now that played for you at Adelphi, and, the impact that not only they were able to have on the court, but just, on your career going forward as well.
Well, listen, at 59, I don't know if I would have said this at 49 or 42, but I think that what you learn as you get older is, at the end of the day, like any other profession, this is about the people. And when I look back at my 4 years at Adelphi, starting with Bob Hartwell, by the way, who was extremely close to me, helped me grow as a coach, was tough on me at times, lenient at others. I grew greatly, but more than anything, it was the staff I worked with, the coaches I worked with, and the players that were on the team. And I can tell you play by play from year one, down one at St. Rose in the conference championship, running a play for Perry Herbert. Danny Gimple breaks it off, draws a foul, down one, makes two to win the conference championship. I can remember, the Chris Bernard tip-in. I can remember the, beating St. Rose year 4 at Queens. You never forget those things, but more than that, it's the Danny Gimples, Perry Herberts, Ray Williams, Chris Bernards, Ryan McCormick's, Jeff Donato's, Andrew Bridges, on and on and on. We had character people who were very good players. And I think back on those those memories, time after time, regardless of how far away you get away from that.
What do you remember most about, outside of basketball life at Adelphi? The community, life here on Long Island. What kind of memories stick with you from your time living here?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, I love the university. I felt like it was an easy place to recruit to. Diverse, international. In my years there, we had Yossi Toplitsky from Israel, Kevin Goodman from England. I'm trying to think. Andrew Bridges, obviously from Australia. And I'm forgetting right now, but I mean, we had a point guard from Egypt who was a solid player. There was so much to sell. Also, great place to live, and just terrific people. And again, I want to reemphasize, my relationship with Bob Hartwell, as an athletic director who hired me and nurtured me and taught me, was I grew immensely under his tutelage.
What could you say the lessons you were able to take from Adelphi after you left here? And, as you said, you've been working in the NBA for over 20 years now, that you could take from that, first college head coaching job to all your years, whether it was as an assistant or now as a head coach in the NBA, and how have you been able to apply those lessons at the professional level?
Well, I think a lot of things. I mean, the one thing I found my first year in Charlotte as a head coach was, I know what it's like to feel when your team can't score one night, or when your team is low energy one night. So I think that compared to a lot of guys who worked their way up in the NBA and have never been a head coach, the dynamics or the internal turmoil that goes with being a head coach, I'd been through that. I knew what it felt like to coach in huge games where you go to bed at 9 and you don't, or 10 or 11, whatever, and you don't fall asleep till 3 and you're up at 5. I had been through all that. So I think all of those things were a big part in me being able to be successful at this level.
What do you think most makes a good assistant coach? You were an assistant coach for a long time before you got a head coaching job. What do you think most, and what do you value from your assistants most?
I think I have an incredible staff here, starting with Pat Delaney's from St. Anselm. But I've always felt this is the number one characteristic I would say for an assistant coach is to be effective. Not make an impact, not be a home run maker. is be effective. And I think the guys that played, I know a lot of them are on the call tonight, or I hope. Look, I mean, I don't know if I coached well. I don't know if I led the program well, but there's two things at Adelphi I know I did. I hired well with the assistants and I recruited well. And there's nothing more important than that. So if you look at Joe Mantegna, who was with me from day one, one of the most successful, high school, prep school level coaches in the country over the last 15 years. Van Macon, now an assistant at St. John's. John Dunn, an incredibly successful run at St. Peter's, and now at the head coach at Marist. Ted Hotaling did a great job in a number of places, now a successful head coach at New Haven. Michael Longobardi, been in the NBA now for whatever, close to the number of years of I have, and I think he's got either one or two rings. So I think that how you hire, how you recruit, it's always about the people.
You mentioned before the time you spent in Charlotte. Now you're in your third season in Orlando, so almost a decade now as an NBA head coach. What would you say you've learned the most in that seat, compared to obviously your time as a college head coach?
I think that the game is the same. I mean, you win and lose for the right reasons. The NBA game is different. Dealing with the players is different. They make a lot more money. They're more powerful than the head coach. But for the game itself, you win or lose for the same reasons. Play hard, play smart, play a game that makes sense. And that's what I believe in.
To that point, I am curious because obviously basketball, the way it's played has changed a lot over the years. More emphasis on outside shooting now, just to name one thing of many. What is the biggest difference that stands out to you from, being at Adelphi in 1995 to, being in the NBA in 2021?
Yeah, I would say what you just talked about, skill level. I think today younger players are more skilled. The way the game is played, we play with more shooting and skill on the floor, which makes the defense totally different. And yet the same thing wins balance. If you look at the NBA year in and year out, you have to be good at offense and defense in order to win big. And that's never changed. Like at Adelphi, for instance, we got a good reputation for being good defensively. We're also very good on offense. And very rarely do teams win big that aren't good at both.
I know you are a coach that preaches defense. So how much, I guess, has that approach changed with the way that, the game and it's played offensively differently, and how you have to scheme differently to slow down, modern NBA offenses compared to, what it was a while ago?
Yeah, if you watch us play in the last 3 weeks, you wouldn't say that, but that's, I think this is, again, balance wins. As a coach, you have to know what wins in your league. Our problem is right now, we don't play enough defense, and we've been decimated, absolutely decimated by injuries. And yet I firmly believe that if we'll get back to defending the way we're capable of, we can be a competitive team this year.
You've spoken a lot in different interviews I've watched preparing for this already, in the 20 minutes that we've been chatting so far, about mentors that you've had, how they've impacted you. First part of this question is, can you name some of them and just the impact that they have made, throughout your career, and how that impact has kind of lasted with you to this point?
Well, I'm going to go super quick here because I could name a bunch. Obviously, I'll start at the top with the Van Gundys because of the impact. They changed my career. Jeff Van Gundy bringing me to the Knicks that changed my life. And he's if anybody watches TV, he's a basketball genius. One of the 2 or 3 best NBA coaches in our time. Stan is right there also. That gave me the opportunity to work with guys like Tom Thibodeau and Brendan Malone, Patrick Ewing. Don Chaney, but also I worked with great coaches in college. Coach Brown, Bob Brown, who's a phenomenal coach, an absolute legend in Northern New England, who I worked with at St. A's and Boston University. Keith Dixon, who last year was voted as the Division II Decade Coach of the Year at St. Anselm College, who's an incredible coach. I worked for Mitch Bonaguro. I worked for a guy named Billy Herrion. I worked for a lot of really, really good coaches. And I think that when you get your chance, it's no difference in any other profession. You take the things that you think are good from all of those coaches in terms of leadership, system of play, and you try to build them into your philosophy.
And the second part of that question is, how conscious are you, and whether it's with your assistants or maybe players or former players, in being a mentor figure to them, and as they maybe pursue different parts of their career?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think a lot of this gets back to just who you are as a person. Look, I'm not trying to be. I've never trying to be all things to all people. I think that Jeff Van Gundy used to tell me after my second year in New York, your biggest problem is you're not ambitious enough. He used to say to me, you could be a head coach, you don't play the game, you just like to coach. I love the coach. That's who I am. I like people. I like people who are real. I have relationships that are real. I feel comfortable with who I am as an NBA head coach. I've never had a team that was picked to be very good. I love it all. I love my time at Adelphi. I don't know many people who have been more happy in their professional life than I have. And that's good with me, So again, you can, I think I'm Northern New England, Vermont, Maine, super simple. And that's fine with me.
I know we have a lot of young coaches on the call tonight. What would be your piece of advice for coaches just starting out in their career, or maybe in the first 5-10 years of their career, and how they can build to, a lot of them, of course, have aspirations to be in the seat that you're in right now. So what's your advice to them?
Yeah, be careful. No, I would say this. There's no one way to be a good head coach. You have to, I think probably like most professions, you have to lead in a manner that you're comfortable with. I think it's so much more about the people than the X's and O's. And then you have to develop a leadership style that you're comfortable with. So I think that coaching is a great profession. And I'm going to share this with you. I shared this with my staff today, because as you may know, here in Orlando, we weren't picked to be very good this year, but I thought we could have been a surprise team, and we get out at 6-2. And then we've taken some incredible, in my 21 years, I've never been through any more injury problems that we've had. But when I was at Adelphi, I went to a Bobby Knight, Gino Auriemma clinic at Rutgers. And Coach and I did a thing on zone offense. And at the end of it, he took questions, and he said, I got one more question. And the younger coach asked him, I'm 23. I've always wanted to be a coach. My dad thinks I shouldn't coach. I just want to add, in your impressions. And he said, I'm going to tell you this. If you want to coach for a long time, you better understand this. There'll be nights, weeks, months, and years where you're just going to get your ass kicked. And if you don't think you're mentally tough enough to handle that, don't coach. And he walked out of the building. And it's going to happen. It's not like anything else. You have to handle the tough times, how you deal with it, how you lead through those tough times, and that will determine the type of person and coach that you are.
We talked about earlier how much the game has changed, from a playing perspective. What do you see now when you get young players come in, draft picks, undrafted free agents, whatever it may be, that players have to develop the most when they, from college to when they get to the NBA to have aspirations of playing in the NBA?
Well, the biggest thing I think, and this is a negative, but it's just a reality, is guys don't know how to play anymore. You know, guys are growing up now where they're have individual skill coaches from a young age. They don't spend as much time with their high school coaches. They're playing AAU. And this has been going on for, I would say, since 15 years ago when you talk to NBA scouts. So younger players are more skilled, maybe better shooters, better off the dribble. Much worse. I mean, much worse. Basketball IQ, idea of team basketball, and willingness to work towards that. So I know this younger players in the NBA are much harder to coach. They don't understand the game. Their idea of what wins is not even close to what it was 10, 15 years ago. And that's just the reality of what we're dealing with.
And to that point, how much of making it in the NBA for a player now is, the mental side of things, even more than the physical. They're all talented, but the players that do have a bit higher basketball IQ, maybe does
Yeah,
that lead to
well,
more success?
I will give you this one. I say to our guys all the time, and I had now for 4 or 5 years, because guys coming into, they don't know how to play. There's no more Ryan McCormicks out there, or very few. Is there's a bunch of guys in our league who get drafted high, who score 16 a night, and they stink. And after 3, 4, 5 years, they end up going away. If you look at the NBA in the last, I think it's 15 years, I think this is close to right. 20% of the first 5 picks never make an all-star team. 20%. And yet every 3 or 4 years, we have a draft where they say it's the greatest draft ever, right? They don't know how to play. They don't want to be coached, and they don't know the game. And that's what has changed in the NBA.
Do you have specific advice if there are any young players or coaches of young players here on the call, maybe to help in that area, to help players be more prepared for the
Well,
college game and the NBA game?
yeah, I'll be honest with you. My biggest thing is when I get done coaching in the NBA, I want to get involved in youth basketball. We got to get away from this AAU thing where they play 3 games a day, 9 games a weekend, and they need to get back with their high school coaches. We need teachers. We need guys who are more willing to play a game, a team game. And they need to learn that when your high school coach says no, it's not okay to run to the AAU coach and say, he won't let me do this. And that's what's happening in our youth. Our youth basketball in the United States is a mess.
We have a lot of guest submission questions. We'll start to get to some of those now. I know some might still be coming in, and Vinny, our moderator here, might be able to add some more for me. But I got a lot for you, Coach. A lot of people very eager to.
I want to have the right to know. I want to be able to make sure there's certain guys that are asking me questions here.
Our first one is from a current player on the Adelphi men's basketball team, Chris Coleman. So Chris asks, when the Milwaukee Bucks independently protested your Game 5 matchup in response to the shooting of Jacob Blake, it seemed like the NBA season was very close to ending. Since then, with the establishment of the National Basketball Social Justice Coalition, do you think the league is heading in the right direction in regards to bringing forth awareness of social justice issues and being an advocate for change?
Totally. I love that question. And I have to say this, as a 59-year-old white man, I have to be honest, is I've never felt like I was racist. But I've never been an anti-racist. And the pandemic, I think, brought on a great awareness for our country. I think the whole Floyd situation in Minneapolis, I know for me, I came home at night, I'm sitting and watching it, and I'm saying, this can't be the country that we live in. And I think for a lot of white people, not black people, I'm talking about white people, racism is a problem in our country. And in my opinion, a lot of it is the problem with white people and white people with money who can make a difference. And that's what I've done since that time is I believe that racism is a problem. Systemic racism is a major problem. We've done a lot here in Orlando. As you may know, the NBA head coaches we have an organization where we're fighting racism, and we are working with Brian Stevenson as a consultant to do that. But again, it's not enough anymore as a white person to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist and fight against this issue and fight against the systemic issues that make the inequality in our country a real problem. And that's where I'm coming from.
Leo Bruno has a two-part question here. First part, as somebody who's been around the game as long as you have, who is the most prepared player you've come across in your time?
Kobe. Kobe was incredible. I would leave for the guys I worked with. Steve Nash was a close second. They're both incredible, incredible to work with. Just on it, detailed. The hunger to win and play well was incredible, and to be around those two was an incredible learning experience for me.
Second part from Leo. How do you continue to motivate and inspire your players to do their best with all of the changes that have resulted from the pandemic?
No, it's a big challenge, and I think that what you're reliant on from your again is guys that want to win. I'm fortunate here in that we have very good guys who want to win, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
Fred Mason asks, he says he was a student and a fan of the Adelphi men's basketball team your first year. So his question is, what brought you to Adelphi as far as taking the job? And did your first team exceed your expectations? I remember that team not being very deep, Fred says.
No, we didn't have a lot of depth. Again, when you have 5.5 scholarships, that's going to happen, right? But, we had a great player in Perry Herbert, Danny Gimple, Raymond Williams, Anthony Gillen, Anthony Bridges. So we were small, but we were incredibly skilled and smart. And, that year started fast, had a little bit of a blip during the middle of the year, but played well, great. And then won at St. Rose for the conference championship, the last game of the year. And didn't do well in the NCAA tournament, but that was one of the funnest years I've ever had coaching.
Now, you've mentioned a couple, but Lauren Pellegrino asks, what's
Lauren
your favorite
Pellegrino,
season?
Whoa.
Your favorite season and memory of coaching at Adelphi?
Oh, I think all four. Number one, Lauren was a terrific player. I enjoyed every year. I mean, obviously, in terms of success, the last year was the best because we should have gotten out of the regional. We lost to St. Rose in, I think, double overtime that night. But every year was good, and I loved the guys. And Lauren Pellegrino was a terrific player, though.
An interesting one here from Nicoletta Cuccio. What values are essential to building a program's culture?
Well, I think that to me, that one is work and accountability. Those would be the two things for me, work and accountability at any level, college, high school, college, pro. We used to have a sign in Charlotte that our magic word is work. And I think that's one thing that's got away from younger players now. Guys don't work as hard as they used to. I believe that's a big problem, but accountability of play is, when there's a play, whatever it is, you have to know what the play is. When there's a defensive scheme, you have to know what the scheme is. And then accountability to that is critical.
Sky Khalil asks, I coach youth basketball, and are there certain drills or skills you'd like to see more emphasis on at this level, such as boxing out or closing out on defense or mid-range shooting, ball movement on offense? You just gave a couple of examples.
The ones you mentioned, closeouts, passing the ball on time and on target, and then to me, being tied together defensively would be the biggest things.
Sky also asks, as a PS to his question, you mentioned Kobe before, you coached him with the Lakers. Do you have a Kobe Bryant story or stories that you could share?
Oh man, I got 100 Kobe stories, but so like game 5, I mean, I was brought to the Lakers to help with the defense, which hadn't been very good. And this is my favorite Kobe story. Kobe and I had a great relationship. I mean, actually, if you can see up here, I have my Kobe picture up here. But so it was probably like game 7 or 8 that year, and it was my game plan, and we were playing Oklahoma City, Durant, Westbrook, whatever. They were really, really good. And Mike D'Antoni was the head coach, and we were walking through the plays. And so I went through the Durant defense. That's the way you do it in the NBA. When Durant gets the ball here, when he gets it here. And then I noticed Mike was looking at his watch because I was going a little bit longer. So the last play, I'd gone like 20 minutes. And then the last play was, I said, if Durant gets it on the wing, we know what we're doing. Okay. Now, I'd only been there, obviously, a few weeks. And so, you know, I was trying to cut it short. And Kobe said, no, Steve, we don't know what we're doing. What are we doing? Okay. So I covered it again. And then when it ended, and then Kobe came over to me and said, hey, that's why we brought you here. You know, we've never been good at defense, even with Phil. Phil Jackson was an offensive coach. We've never been good at defense. You're organizing us, organize us. And he walked out, and that's what I learned from Kobe.
Maximilian Robinson asks, what is the greatest thing about being an NBA coach? What makes it so rewarding?
To be honest with you, I mean, it's no different. I mean, like, I can remember, obviously it's risk reward, right? I mean, it's the money. The greatest 2 years I've ever spent were here as an assistant, where we won 59 games 2 years in a row, and went to the finals 1 year with Sam Van Gundy as the head coach. I spent years with Jeff Van Gundy in Houston, with Yao and Tracy McGrady, where we were terrific. But it's no different. Listen, I can go back to Woodland High School, winning a tournament game for the first time in 16, 17 years. I can go back to here at Adelphi with winning, 2 conference championships in 4 years, beating Pace and the Chris Bernard Tippin. The dynamics of winning or losing doesn't change. The NBA is the highest level. You get more scrutiny, you make more money, but the dynamics are still the same.
This one is from Kevin Goodman. He says, congratulations on all of your success so far. After being around so much talent in the NBA, what do you consider to be the 3 most important characteristics that separates an all-star player from a generational talent like a Jordan or LeBron?
All right. So I'm going to say this. First of all, Kevin Goodman, one of the greatest wins in my 4 years at Adelphi was Kevin Goodman actually locked up Joe Ingenieri from St. Anselm. The year that we went to the Final Four, Kevin was a great competitor, incredible character, and a guy that came to Adelphi because of Mickey Walker, and we were so lucky that he did. And then I would say, in terms of like character, every player is different. The one thing that's happened now, because we're playing so much 4 out or 5 out or whatever, is it's just guys that can play two-way basketball, guys that are really good on offense and really good on defense. And it's hard to find those guys. It's an everyday search for the NBA teams, who have like 8, 9 guys searching for them worldwide. But guys that can guard their guy and they create a shot one-on-one has really become what the NBA game is all about.
You've spoken a lot about relationships throughout this call, and this question from Daniel Bay kind of hits on that. He said, what do you think is more important when finding high popularity jobs in the NBA or other sports leagues, knowing people or expertise in that field?
I mean, I would say this is I would think this is about. I've never done anything but coach, but I think it's about maximizing your talent, right? Like, so getting the most out of people that work under you, um, maximizing your talent in the NBA is everything. Getting guys that play the best that you can. You know, glass half full versus glass half empty. You know, I know for now, for our team that we're going to put out on the floor in 2 nights, we're not very talented, but we can win if every guy plays with the right purpose and with the right intensity. And that's what you have to lock into. So I'm sure other fields are the same way, but that's how I feel about the NBA.
Kerry Braun asks, coaches are always trying to get the best out of their athletes, and there are many different styles and techniques to that. Your reputation seems to be that players respect and like you. So what is your advice for athletes on the best way to make a coach happy, even the coaches that are tough and seem impossible to please?
No, I think that's the buy-in, you know, is knowing what guys can do, what they can't do, and then leading them toward the way that they'll play best. I think like in the world today, overreactionary doesn't work. Uh, Demanding to me, to the guys that want to play well is still good. But I think again, you have to have a very good idea of what guys can do, what they can't do, what you can demand of them and what you can't.
Craig Wolf asks, this is an in-depth one here. So in your first 4 years in Charlotte, you finished bottom 5 in offensive rebounding percentage every year. Then in your last season, you jumped up to finish 16th in the league. So, and then he adds, in Orlando, you finished 20th in your first 2 seasons and now in the top 10 this season. So his question is, did you have a shift in philosophy along the way? Was the change personnel based? And, you know, how would you equate that change at different levels as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, definite philosophical change. I mean, what I'm trying to find here is I've never coached a team in the NBA so far that wasn't challenged offensively. And so as I've gone through it summer through summer with study, is there's ways you have to find ways to score. And we're all in. Right now, it's hurting us. Well, we're all in on the offensive rebounding part. And that's very astute. And but we're going to continue, even though it's hurting us right now. We're going to continue to do that.
This is a good one from Matt Bartell. What is it like to have Michael Jordan as your boss?
I mean, listen, I've had so many just incredible experiences in the NBA. Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy, Don Chaney, Tom Thibodeau, Brendan Malone, Patrick Ewing, guys I've coached with. But none more than working with Michael. I mean, we correspond now, believe it or not, even though we're competitors. When we have a good win, he'll text me. 5 years with him, I learned a lot. We spent a lot of time together. He was a great owner, very supportive, incredible knowledge of what it takes to win. And I think someone that I'll have a lifelong relationship with.
We're going to wrap it up with a couple more generic ones here. So first, what's your best piece of advice you could give to young players? And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but young players and what they can do. And as I said before, young coaches and how they can prepare young players to get to the next level.
But both together. There's 2 aspects of this, and this is what has changed over the years. There's 2 aspects of being a winning player. One, be on top of your game. Be in shape, know your game, know what you have to do to play well, And then two, know the team game. This is the biggest thing that's changed over the years. Know what the schemes are, know what the coverages are, know what the plays are, so that when you're on the floor, the team functions well. And I think that's the biggest thing. There are a number of guys in our league, for instance, that can score 15, 16, 17 nights a game, and they stink. They stink. They're not bad. They stink because they don't know how to play team basketball. And that's the number one thing that NBA coaches are looking for.
I know it's become a lot more popular, I guess would be the word to say, in recent years for players, or they pay a lot more attention to the work they put into their bodies, in addition to that skill level work. And everybody's always been working out, but just that extra attention, the extra money that they're pouring into it. So, what kind of advice could you give, not just in skill development, but in also taking care of your body, especially in the grind that you guys are in the NBA, playing every other night or back-to-back nights?
Yeah,
So
I think that's the biggest thing that I have learned is flexibility, strength, conditioning. It's all gives you the best chance to play well. And I think there's a lot of guys that just want to play. It's amazing to me the number of guys who are fighting for their lives in the NBA, and you make a trade for them, or they're free agents or whatever, looking for a job, and they come to you and they're in horrible shape. And conditioning, strength, flexibility is a major part of being able to play well.
we have this is another submission. Don't have a name next to it, but somebody asks, is there anything you regret or would change about your path that you took to this point?
No, all these damn guys that are listening tonight that I recruited at Adelphi, all these poor students, good players. No, I'm just kidding. If this is the end of it, I would say this: Adelphi for me was an incredibly special place. I loved it. I had a comfort level with recruiting New York City players, international players. I'm very proud of what we did. Bob Hartwell was a big part of it. He taught me a lot, and it's a very special place for me. And anything that I can ever do, ever, for the university, for people, it's very important to me. So I appreciate the people that supported me there, the players that played for me, the coaches that were on the staff, and it's an incredibly. I think back of those 4 years often.
And you did jump a little bit on my last question, which was going to be, do you have a parting message here for the Adelphi community and everybody that tuned into the call tonight?
No, I'll say it again. I just I look back, as you get, well, you're younger, but as you get older, I mean, I'm 59 now, I feel very appreciative of many stops along the line. I'm not sure there's many people that, I've loved my life. I love the game. I got that from my dad. I've been appreciative. I wasn't someone who said, my goal is to be an NBA head coach. I've loved it. I love the NBA. I love the game. But at the end of the day, this is all about the people. And people like Chris Bernard and Andrew Bridges and Ryan McCormick, Danny Gimple, Ray Williams, on and on, on and on and on. I appreciate them. I'm appreciative of them. And I feel fortunate to have the experiences I had with them.
Before we wrap up tonight, we do have a free raffle prize, an Adelphi Athletics branded bag filled with department apparel. So every guest who registered received the opportunity to be entered into tonight's raffle. And after a randomized generator spin, our winner tonight is Raquel Peralta. So congratulations, Raquel. A member of the athletic staff will be in contact with you to arrange pickup and delivery of the item. But Coach, thank you so much for all the stories that you shared. We really appreciate it. And thanks so much for giving back to Adelphi and spending some time with us tonight.
All right, thank you very much.
That'll be it for our program tonight. We'd like to thank the Panther Club for supporting tonight's event. We hope you enjoyed all the stories as we look back on the memories that Coach Clifford shared from his time at Adelphi. We'd also like to extend a special thank you to Adelphi men's basketball coach Dave Duke for helping put the program together tonight, as well as the many program alumni, community members, and youth basketball organizations that were here. We hope to see you on our Garden City campus here very soon. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and good night.